A 1984 sci-fi classic is finally going to get the Hollywood treatment, but not a movie. Welcome to Sidetrack, your sci-fi TV and movie channel. In 1984, William Gibson wrote The Neuromancer. Now, this book, a classic in sci-fi, is considered to be the father of sci-fi punk. It actually has inspired several projects, thinking like Johnny Mnemonic, Johnny Mnemonic, Johnny Mnemonic, Johnny Mnemonic. That Keanu Reeves sci-fi androidy movie, as well as inspiring an entire genre of sci-fi. Now, if you are a regular Sidetrack, you'll know that I have a guy that I speak to that works in Hollywood and for a certain agency, and he gets to tell me lots and lots of juicy little tidbits of information. Talking to him about Stargate and The Expanse and lots of other things, he happened to mention this project. And this is something I'm seriously excited about because this is actually a novel I read as a small boy and absolutely adored. I love things like Tank Girl and projects like that as well. I do really kind of like the punk theme. It kind of inspires a lot of my music taste as well, if I'm honest. So they have actually attempted to make this project into a movie lots of times, but it's never quite worked. So let's go back through. Epic Comics turned it into a graphic novel series in 1989. I've actually read that as well. That was very cool. There was a Commodore 64. Right, now you have to be a certain age to remember that. I actually had a Commodore 16 and then a Commodore 64. I didn't actually play this game until years afterwards, but it was released in the early 90s, I think. I never actually played, but what I did do is I got a version of the game later that I was able to play on the PC. So don't get me wrong, not a particularly good game. By today's standards, it was bloody awful, but I loved it at the time. The first time they tried to make it into a movie was back in 2007. Mila Jovovich was going to star. Sure, I'm not saying that name right, but she would have actually been wicked in this movie. One of the main stars is a very sassy woman character, and I'll tell you a bit more about the plot in a second. But she would have, it would have worked. Oh, by the way, if you do like the content, please consider hitting the join button and becoming a fully fledged side tracker. You can also go to side-track.com and pick marvelous merchandise. All of these little things really help the channel. Also, if you're new to the channel, like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, and share the video wherever the hell you want. Back in 2012, GFM Films tried to again get going with this. They actually had a script that had apparently been done a few years before, and that actually William Gibson had his hand in. So it would have had that touch of authenticity that as the real sci-fi fans really love. Liam Neeson and Mark Wahlberg were both approached and potentially interested in filming that movie, but again, it never quite got off the ground. The most current attempt to make this into a movie was actually very recent in 2017. Deadpool's Tim Miller was going to direct for Fox, and Simon Kinberg was going to produce. So, this project and the rights to produce this project have bounced around a little bit, but they currently are held by Fox. Now, Fox is obviously owned by Disney, so I can feel the pitter-patter of tiny little feet running for the door as we speak, because as soon as anybody says Disney, we all sigh a little bit of a, oh, God, what they're going to do with that then. But Fox actually does have a pretty good history of making slightly more crazy sci-fi movies and slightly more cult sci-fi movies. If they give this to somebody like Tim Miller, somebody that did such a great job, for me at least, with both Deadpool movies, and if they give it an R rating, now this could be pretty good. Now, The Neuromancer, again, has inspired lots of projects like Ghost in the Shell. Now, the most recent attempt at making Ghost in the Shell was bloody awful. They tried to go for the strange, and they tried to respect the original material a fair bit, I imagine, but it just didn't work. Now, Ghost in the Shell starred Scarlett Johansson. The most memorable bit of that movie was the bits where Scarlett Johansson, CGI'd, was basically naked. Other than that, the film was actually quite forgettable. quite hard to follow, and just not particularly well made. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about the plot for the Neuromancer. So it's based in Chiba City in Japan. Henry Case is this washed-up hacker, and he gets actually caught trying to steal from his boss. So as punishment, they damage his central nervous system, which means he can no longer upload himself to the Matrix. They might have to change that name. I don't know who quite knows the rights to that. Which is basically a worldwide VR system. Now, already, you can probably name 5 movies off the top of your head that have been inspired by this. I'm thinking like Ready Player One, that Spielberg movie a couple of years ago. It's very similar to the plot of this. On this one last job, he's talked into working with Molly Millions, who Mila Jovovich, I imagine, would have played in the earlier attempt to make this into a movie. They were going to steal this, like a ROM drive. Now, the movie goes on from there. There's lots of highs, lots of lows. There's a lot of really like stuff that makes you stop and think. It gets very crazy in a few places. It's going to be a very, very difficult movie to make. But what am I being told about the current state of this project? Well, they're not going to make a movie anymore. What I'm being told is that Fox really want to get this on Disney Plus and Hulu in the United States. And it will be a short streaming miniseries of maybe about 8 episodes. Now, on Disney Plus and Hulu, Fox is allowed to push the limits a fair bit. I'm thinking things like American Horror and shows like that. There was that Marvel series, which I've never forgotten the name of, which set back in the 60s. The main guy was going Professor X's dad. Can't remember. The poster was wicked. It was his brain going. I'll put a little note down here telling you what it was called. But anyway, that really pushed the limits of what felt quite arty, actually. It was quite boring to watch, actually, in places. But still, overall, for me, a complete triumph. I actually think on that network, if they're allowed to be creative and if Disney doesn't try to force them to go in a certain direction, which they tend to do sometimes, then this could be a really wicked TV series. But get in the comments and tell me what you think. Is this a project that you ever read when you were a kid? Did you read the graphic novels or, play the video game yourself? Interesting tidbit here. They actually tried to turn this into an opera. It nearly got made. It even had a premiere date, but then it never quite happened. I can't imagine how the hell they turned this into an opera. But it would have been spectacular anyway. But as I say, get into the comments, tell me what you think. If you are new to the channel, please like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. It really helps us out. And if you enjoy the content, please consider becoming a fully fledged sci tracker. Hit the join button. Hit it now. As always, guys, please stay safe. I'll see you next time.